Checking 1, 2, 3, checking. Checking 1, 2, 3. Checking. Can everybody hear me? Oh, let's see here. Let's get this stream started. Let's see what happens here. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. So let's do a quick mic check here. Folks, can you hear me? You can hear me. Wonderful. I did a big audio update today, and I'm not sure how it sounds. I tested it recording. It sounded the same, but I'm interested to hear from people. Does it sound better or not? I have installed something that I did not want to install, but a lot of people on the stream, and I don't remember which night it was, one of these nights were really kind of bugging about the audio. And so I did get a cloud filter. So I've got the pamphlet here for it. There is a cloud filter in between my Mackie board and my Studio 24 now. It's giving me about 25 dB of padding. It uses phantom power. I'm not too happy about that, to tell you the truth. It goes between my compressor and my 24-band EQ, and I use that through the effects loop. Any noodles, what I'm getting at here is that hopefully the audios will sound a little bit better than they have before. I'm actually coming close to peaking. So, Matt, if you think I'm too loud, let me know, because I don't want to peak, and I'm getting into the yellow and orange places, and that's usually where you're going to get distortion, and that's never good. Let me actually turn it down a little bit, because I still feel like it's just peaking just a little bit too much. And I've got a bombastic voice, so... My board is not at my desk. It is... my voice, yeah, I think that's just the microphone itself. My my mixing board is actually off to the side. I've got a whole audio setup that you can't see over here, so that makes it tricky to change audio settings and stuff. But I also only have so much desk real estate, and I have a lot of audio gear. So you can see from the guitar singing in the background, I used to be in bands and stuff, so I have a ton of audio gear I've collected throughout the years. Well, folks, today is a new day, and a new day calls for a new beta. It is Beta Thursday, and today Apple released Beta 3 for Xcode 15. It also released the latest version of the macOS beta for 14. So I'm running Beta 3 on both of these, both macOS and the Xcodes. And the reason for the betas, if you are new to the streams that I've been doing here recently, it's because of the support for Vision, the new Vision goggles. You can get the simulator working for those. And not today, but in the future stream, we're going to play around with that a bunch, because there is a ton of people interested in seeing that stuff. Apologize for looking away. I am just making sure that YouTube, our folks over on YouTube, are also happy. We are multi-streaming, folks. On Twitch TV, you can find me. You also can find me on YouTube/Custoda. So however you're coming in, I want to appreciate you for coming in and talking to us. I usually sometimes get a couple people on YouTube, usually between 5 and 10, so I try to keep the chat open there separately. My program I have here that allows me to watch the stream chat only allows me to type in Twitch. It doesn't allow me to type in YouTube, so I have to keep that open in a separate window. And so that's the reason for that. So let's go look and see where we left off. Now, we're hoping that everything works, because this is a new beta, so this is always dangerous on a live stream, right? Hey, you just update your bits, now nothing works. That's a possibility. Let's take a look and build and see if we can remember where we left off. I think we left off in a good place. On Tuesday's stream, we did a holiday stream on Tuesday. No errors, that's always a good sign. And we should have a brand new version of the simulator running, because this should be the iOS 17.3 beta. So this is 17.0 beta 3. So everything is new. Everything is latest betas, which we're flying close to the sun, folks. If you don't know, when you fly too close to the sun, sometimes your wings can get burned off. That is your cars, of course. I am a fan of the Greek literature. Big black screen of nothing. That's always what you want to see when you're starting to debug. But here we come. So it was a warm-up. I think we'll give it... we'll be okay with that. Let's take a look and see what's going on here now. If you don't remember, we got images to save in the database. That's pretty cool. So this image in this profile is actually saved in the Coach by Slide database. And if we remember right, this is a blob, a binary large object of bits. And we can go in and change that picture if we want. You can see here, here's all the information about this developer. I just made up this person's name. I could say this is Groves instead. Wait, can I spell Matt's last name right? Groves, sure. We'll make this person Matt instead. Let's see here. We'll change our first name to Matt also. And we'll say that he's part of engineering. He's not even part of hardware technologies or information technology. We'll say he's part of engineering. Let's go ahead and say, but we need a better picture for Matt. Let's change that profile picture. I've met Matt in person before, so I hope I'm saying it right because I've literally met him in person before and heard his name. So it'd be a little insulting if I didn't. So we're going to make a different picture for Matt. Also, we're going to say, hey, Matt's new picture's this. I'm going to click save. We should go back and we should see that that's dynamic. You'll see the email address didn't change because that's what we log in with. That's our username, right? You can't change that, but you can change all the other information about the user profile. We're getting pretty good here. So we've got an app actually functioning, talking to a database. We're saving information. We're pulling information from the database. We're dynamically updating information from the database. And that's all fancy, but, we need to get the ability. Oh, let's see here. I'm going to refactor my app to use a username as a key instead of email. Yeah, so I'm kind of cheating here a little bit, Matt, and it's a good point. I'm cheating because my username and passwords that I use in my app will be the same usernames and passwords I send to app services. And so I'm going to cheat a little bit, and because I make that the key, this makes my app service and my sync gateway configuration way easier. Because I don't have to think about it then, right? And I'm getting a little lazy there because it makes an easier demo, to tell you the truth, folks. Usually, I'd recommend you roll out Azure Active Directory or you roll out Auth0. Ping Federate is another famous identity provider that are out there. There's a bunch of them, folks. Okta owns Auth0 now, I believe. All three of those are viable solutions for doing authentication in your mobile app and authentication in general. I don't recommend doing authentication yourself. It's hard. And FusionAuth, Matt just came out with another great one. I don't recommend doing authentication yourself in your mobile app because it's dangerous. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Passwords can get leaked, all those kind of things. And usually, I'm an enterprise developer. So I've spent my entire career developing in enterprise or working for companies that build tools for developers. And so in this enterprise world, we almost always use an auth provider. We very rarely ever bake in authentication themselves. I mean, even as long as back as I can remember, like back in healthcare, back in the early 2000s, we were using Azure, not Azure, but regular Active Directory for our authentication. And before that, we were using something called LDAP. And actually, most people don't know this, but at least old Active Directory from Windows is LDAP. It just has a bunch of added stuff to it, like DNS and stuff to make it magical. But we used to always use that for authentication. Why? Because authentication's hard, and it's really easy to break, and it's really easy to have security problems, and it's better to have it be someone else's problem, not yours. Yeah, I agree, Matt. Making it extensible for third parties is a good idea. And eventually we may get to the point where I may put my personal Azure Active Directory on this. I've got my own Azure Active Directory for my domain, custoda.tech. And I may actually roll that out and get that deployed into an app service and stuff. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of things that really can be confusing. And so I could try to make that as simple as possible. But at the end of the day, most mobile developers, you're probably not going to be the person configuring Azure Active Directory for SSO or single sign-on. And so I know that that's not necessarily the most entertaining content to stream because it's complicated and not fun. And I also have to make sure I don't share out anything that could compromise my Azure account, which is really hard sometimes on the Azure portal. Because just about everything can compromise your account on the portal. So any hoodles, what are we going to do today? Well, we've got user profile. I wouldn't say done, okay? It's not done. We know that we got some tech debt that we're going to have to eventually go back and fix. But we've spent like 4 streams working on it, and it's a little boring to just work on one thing over a period of time. This is MVP in the sense that we've got it. It kind of works. We could ship this out and get feedback from users on it. So from a minimal viable product, it works. Is it lovable? Is it a minimal lovable product? Well, you can change your picture. You can change your name and stuff. I would even argue that I could love using that interface. It's not hard. It emulates the Apple interface, right? If we go in, we're trying to steal from the Apple interface right here. You can see Apple's got this interface for your iCloud, and I'm trying to emulate something very similar. Obviously, I've got my own take on this, but we're trying to draw inspiration from them, to say the least. All right, folks. So based on that, what do we need to do next? Well, I would love to get the expense reporter working where we can list out expenses. But the problem is it's chicken and egg, right? So if we look at the expense reports from that standpoint, do you do the list first or do you create a new expense report first? Because you can't list out an expense report without having expense reports, right? And if we step back for a second, then the conversation becomes, okay, so do we just make an add button? You can add expense reports. Then we have to debug that. How do we debug it and all this kind of stuff? Or do we make the list first and then we use mock data and then we swap it out for a database? That's another really popular pattern. I don't like either of those, to tell you the truth. And there's a reason for this, and I'll explain myself here. I am the fan of having a data generator built into my app. And just have the app generate random data for me. This is really great for things like testing. QA teams love this because they don't have to type in 100 of these, and they can kind of, if I work with the QA team usually on this, I can come up with a pattern for them so they understand how the data is generated, and based on that they can write automated tests on that. And that makes a really great world, because then it's like, well, my app is testable. You can throw it into any environment. You can click 3 buttons and it generates a bunch of data, and it makes it look like you spent an hour in the app doing stuff. That also tests all my models. It tests out everything, and I can do all my design ahead of time. And that way, when I get to my screens, they kind of write themselves, because the data generator kind of did most of the work of getting myself up and running. That's my favorite way to do this. And I've done it before this way. If we go look at my Kotlin code for the other version of this app I wrote in a different life, and if I were to run this real quick, I'll show you what we're looking to do here. So let's run this on a simulator. This will take forever and a day to get started because it's Android and the emulator is not started. And Android emulators, for those of you that have done Android development, they're slow to get started. And look at Android making a liar of me. It's right out the bat just starting. What? This usually takes like forever to start. Wow. Android, make a liar out of me. Hey, you know what? I'm perfectly happy with being wrong here. So here's my app. I've got nothing. I've got no expense reports. That's sad. This is like going down the Christmas tree Christmas morning, having no presents. That's not fun. But if we go into developer, see here we have this load sample data. And we have 2 screens to talk about on the developer screen. I have this database information. This is kind of important to me because it tells me all about the database. It tells me who's logging in, what department they're in. We haven't got to that yet. It gives me the database name, where it's located at. That's really important, so I can go find it and take it from the disk if I need to. It gives me how many documents are in the database based on the different types of data I have. Now, this is all really important because if I'm trying to figure out what's going on in the universe and figure out like why the app's not working, this gives me some troubleshoot information that I don't even have to then work on all that hard because I kind of know some information. Now, this app is a little bit more interesting because of the fact that it, I already ran the data generator on it. And you'll see here for this user, I have all these different expense reports that automatically come up. You'll see that it generates 6 at a time right now. Now, they're per user. So what I could do is I could log out and log in as demo 2. If I log in as demo 2, that user I know right now does not have any expense reports because I've ran this app before. And now I do have expense reports, so that's not right. Why do I have expense reports for demo 2? I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. It's been a while since I looked at this Android code. Maybe I also ran it for demo 2. Oh no, I think I ran this for up to demo 4. Anyways, I guess what I'm getting at here is that you can generate sample data anytime. Oh, there we go. That seems like a bug in the Android code where the state didn't update. I bet you there's a bug in this code. Huh. That's not good. I should probably put a note to myself that I should fix that real quick. But let's load some sample data. So what happens is when the sample data loads, it goes from 0 to hero. And it picks dates based on the last 6 months. And so that's what I was going to get at today, is that currently today we have a report date and an update date, but it goes backwards in time. And that's how the current app works. I would like the same functionality in iOS. I would like the ability to just load some sample data in and have it magically just come up and work. Now, how this works behind the scenes is that there is a class that I have that actually handles all this. And you're going to ask me, well, which class is that, Aaron? And I'm going to say, that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. It's, I think, in the manager. I think it's in the manager class. Let's see here. Get department by title. That gets some stuff. That gets counts. Nope, it's not there. So it's probably in the report repository because you make reports here. So that's my guess. Map query. We have a save function. We have a delete function. We have a count function. We have an update manager. Oh, that's a manager of the report. Load sample data. There we go. So we have some code that I wrote here that just basically gets information. So if we look here, what does it do? It gets the user, sets the user to a couple of fields. It has to find the department for the user. It has to find some managers, which we don't have yet built into the product, so that's something we're going to have to solve. It gets a type of expense report. It gets the count for the expenses. I'm not sure why I do that. Don't remember. Managers count. I think I use the counts for the random generator. That's right. So I use the counts because in the random number generator, I have to say how many managers do I have and give me a random number between 1 and however many managers we have and select one randomly. And the managers are assigned by a department. So, you know, one department may have 6 managers, another may have 12. But the counts are needed for the randomness of that. A zone ID. Zone ID. That's one thing I don't know what that's for. I wrote this and I don't remember. So folks, this is once again, as developers, the reasons why we write good documentation on variables and stuff, because otherwise we go back to our code 6 months later and we're like, I don't remember how this works at all. You'll see here what we end up doing then is we get a list of prior months, and I think I hard code it to 6. I think that gets passed in, or it's a variable up in here. And then based on that, yeah, right here, prior months, get prior months is a function call that I have. And so we get the count of prior months, we go through and loop through them, and then we do something called in batch. Now what's in batch do? Well, it's a batch process. In Couchbase Lite, when we add records to a database, we want to do it in batch because it's faster. If you do it one at a time, it's super slow, and it's actually really bad for your battery on your phone. It's going to chew up a lot of resources. So by doing in batch, you know, we can add all these records in. What happens is it'll do it in memory, and it'll wait until the batch is done, and then it saves all of them at once. So it's a batch process. By doing that, you're going to, like I said, it will save a ton of memory, a ton of battery, and it actually processes faster because you're not adding a record, checking indexes, all that kind of stuff, then adding an next record, blah, 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 blah. It's a very optimized way of doing this inside of Couchbase Lite specifically. And so we define something called a unit of work, and then we go through and we loop through our database in batch and go through and make random reports. That's what all this thing does. So if we go look at that, I think we can get started with this. I think we can build something that does the data generation. Now, as developers, we usually want to try to improve ourselves, right? And try to make our life easier. I believe the reason why I did this inside of the report repository was because it was requested of me. I wrote this application not for myself, but for the education team. And they wanted a very small code base, and they had a bunch of rules that they wanted. They didn't want the user to have to go into 100 different files to find things. And so I put things where people asked me to put them, basically. And I gave them a lot of flexibility of how they could do things, and they kind of made some decisions. Well, this time it's my app. And I don't like the idea of having the random data generator inside of the report repository because it generates more than just reports. It also generates expenses. And so in the theory of a repository should have a single job, right? And this is breaking that separation because this thing has too much information about how expenses work also. And it's no longer just a repository anymore. Now it's doing a different job. That's not good. So let's not do that again. Let's try to go through and try to make a separate person or a separate thing do this job for us. So that's what I think we're going to work on today in our stream, and probably won't get it done today, but probably will get it done tonight on our later stream. So let's start with the more core things that we have going on in our app and get ourselves re-familiar with it. It's been a couple days since we looked at it. So we should have a models folder. This is where all of our models are, and we should have some services, and we'll probably make a service for this, to a data generator service, something like that. That's a pattern that we've been kind of doing in here. That makes sense to me. And we can we only really need it in the developer screen, so we don't even have to inject it in to the environment objects, because in fact we're only going to use it in one spot. So that makes sense to me too. So what am I doing here? I'm planning out my plan of attack here. Talk to myself and talk to you, but I like to do this before I write any code. I like to come up with a plan of what I'm going to do. I like to think about it, so that way when I do it, I don't do it twice. If I just start writing code and I haven't thought it through enough, then I'm probably going to have to rewrite that code, and I'm not a fan of writing code twice. So let's take a look at here and see what to start out with our models inside of Android, because our models should be pretty close. The data that we have should be pretty close to the same thing we have there. We're adding some fields over in iOS, because the more I start thinking about it, I liked the idea of having a little bit more things. But a manager has what things inside of it. And it also has a DAO, a data access object. So we learned about those on the last stream, that DAOs are a very popular way to kind of transform your data when you access it. We also have something called a DTO, a data transformation object. Those are other things that do cool things. So we think, you see here, we have a manager. A manager has an ID, a given name, a surname. So that's first and last name. That's more, I used to work for a company that had global, they weren't just in the US, and outside of the US, people don't use the word first name and last name that often. They use surname and given name. And so if you work at a global company, you tend to use these terms more than first name and last name. And so I get used to, I probably was just writing this and was used to writing it the old way that I think about things, which is from my previous company. So I don't even have to ask. Well, I could ask. Why would I not ask this? And I do know why this exists, this DAO. It's a wrapper, because managers, when you query things inside of Couchbase Lite in Kotlin, they come back as a wrapped out object instead of just an array of them. They're kind of got an envelope on them, basically. And this is the unenvelope it, basically. An envelope, by the way, is like, if you think about it, I have a document. I've got this document, which I'm not going to show you text. And I want to get to this document. But the problem is I want to tell you, it's for you. So I put this inside of an envelope and I label it to you. Say, hey, this is for you. This is from me. And I've got this letter for you. And so then in order to get my letter, my document, I have to open the envelope. And the envelope may have some stuff inside of it or outside of it to tell me some information, like it's fragile, all those kind of things, right? That's the envelope pattern theory, is that the envelope doesn't have to have just a document. It can have some things about the document to tell you about it. It can tell you where the next document is in a series of documents. It could tell you if there was an error message. That's a really popular thing. A lot of times I see people use the envelope pattern when they want to give you a document, but they also want to give you, like, did an error message happen, or was there a certain counter that you need, or those kind of things. Hey, Nick, how you doing, buddy? Glad to see you. Hope you're doing great on your Thursday. Welcome to the stream. We are playing with the beta 3 bits from Xcode and from Mac OS. And we're going to make a data generator that's going to go into our mobile app and generate some data so that we can start building our UI. And when we build our UI, we'll have data to actually look at the UI with. So we don't have to guess. And I don't like guessing. So that's what we're talking about. We're just talking about some patterns of ways to do things. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with our AI overlords. They have been helping us all along in this stream, and we're gonna continue asking them for help, because one of the things I want to do in this stream is explore, is AI useful for mobile developers specifically? And the answer so far has been, we've been streaming now, I think this is our 9th or 10th stream on this particular subject. It's mixed. I think the problem with AI is that it's not been updated enough. We're on the beta of Swift 5.9, and the last time our friend's ChatGPT has been updated was in Swift 5.5. So it doesn't know anything about 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, or 5.9. So all the code examples that it gives us isn't necessarily the greatest examples. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask our friend at ChatGPT saying, can you convert this Kotlin class to Swift? And let's see what happens here if it can figure out how to do that. All right, so it says here in Swift we have struts. We do have struts, but we also have classes. Classes are perfectly valid in Swift. Depends what you're trying to build. Just like C# has classes and struts, and it depends what you're trying to build. We try to use struts when we can because they're more efficient, and I would say the same thing goes in .NET for the most part. It says there's a codable protocol. That's right. We do use codable instead of serializable. And codable is the alias for codable, decodable, and encodable, and that is also correct. So so far it's right. Notice Swift does not have equivalent for the keep notion in Kotlin. The keep notion for Android development also used to prevent entities from being removed or renamed during the build process and going shrieking enabled. That is 100% right. I'm trying to fight the linker. The linker is not my friend in Android, and I don't want to go into a rant, but when you're an Android developer, the linker could literally be your worst nightmare. You're trying to figure out why, and a lot of times it's because Android's really big, and the linker's job is very complicated. It's trying to remove all this stuff that you don't need, and sometimes the linker removes too much, and so we need to tell it, hey, no, I really do want to keep this. Don't unlink this from me. Don't throw this out of the build. I'll be very upset. We did have some linker problems with that, and that's why. I think those have been mostly fixed now, but I haven't worked on that app in about 6 months, but there was a point in time with Jetpack Compose and Kotlin and a couple of libraries I was using where, because we're using the Kotlin serializer, if you don't use the keep statement, we were having problems with serialization. And I don't know what to say. It was just a problem, and that was the solution at the time provided on GitHub, so that's what I did. So let's see here. Let's take a look at here. So we have a struct called manager DAO, codable, and it has an item called a manager. And that's going to go along with our SQL query, our T-SQL, or not T-SQL, SQL, or Nickel query. Apologize, having flashbacks from the SQL Server days. The item name is very important, but we'll get to that a little bit later when we look at queries. That name has to be that name because it's however we name our alias in our query. Whatever that name is, we have to match it there. And this is where I was telling you why we need the envelope, because in SQLite and Nickel, SQL++ and Nickel, I'm not going to get this right today, they're the same thing. If you look at Nickel or SQL++, they're the same thing. They're a query language that you can use to query a database. The theory is that when you alias something to a name, whatever that name is, that's how the item's going to return, and that's the envelope of it. So you're going to get a bunch of items. You're going to get item, and then inside the item would be all the properties. You're going to get another item, and it's going to be inside the properties. So because of that, we have to have a way of unboxing that, or basically going through and taking the envelope out and getting the document out from inside of it. And that's what this code does. So let's see here. Let's look at the manager. That's codable. That looks cool. These all kind of look good. These don't look bad. We don't need the 2JSON. That's more of a... boy, there's a long reason why I needed that in the... in Kotlin, because Kotlin, encoding and decoding in Kotlin, like I said, I was in between converting from JSON, which is Google's library, which is a Java library, and Kotlin's library. And Kotlin's library had some problems, so this was a helper to try to fix some of those things and make it so that it was encoded better. I don't think we need that 2JSON method, to tell you the truth. But I'm going to use Matt's favorite thing here of copy code here and paste that in, and we'll have a manager then. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go into our models folder. We already have a manager, and it's got nothing inside of it. That's not good. We would like to have something inside of it. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's add our manager and our manager DAO. And we're going to get rid of this function right now because I don't think we really need it. And we always can get it back if we need it. Let's re-look at our fields and say, does this make sense here? From a manager standpoint, we've got given name, that's the first name, and surname is the last name. We've got an email address, a gender. Do we really need gender for manager? I think I was just trying to give it a bunch of fields to make it look like there was a bunch of data in the database. I don't remember if that was part of the spec or not, to tell you the truth, of the original data set. It's been too long. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. But really, usually in the business line of business app, I'm trying to think here. I didn't have it. I'm actually gonna ding it. I don't think we need it. I don't think it's relevant for this particular app. I do want to try to keep this a little bit smaller and more controllable scope. Job title was definitely important. Department is important. But I had a request. Come in from the community. So there's a couple different communities out there. Discord. If you go to my Twitch page, that's twitch.com/Biazal, you'll see Biazal, right? Is it Biazal or Custoda? It's Biazal. If you go to Biazal, Biozal, you're watching the stream on there right now, by the way. There's some links in some Discord communities, and one of them is the dev group that hang out and just talk about cool things. They're a really cool dev club. But another one is Couchbase, the company I work for. We have a Discord, and actually I had somebody literally ask for this. They had messaged me on Discord saying that they were using our Kotlin one, and they were wondering how would they make it so that it could work with something called multiple channels. And I said, well, channels in our app are, and this is complicated. We'll get into this in way future stream when we talk about how to sync to the cloud and stuff. But channels in my app are handled via departments, it's called. And I said, well, the only way to really do that is you'd have to re-engineer the app to make it so that like a manager or an employee could be in multiple departments. And they said, well, I would like to see that. I said, well, that's really complicated because the app wasn't built with that in mind. So I would have to re-engineer the app because when you make an expense, I would have to ask you which department to set the expense report to. This actually makes sense, it turns out, because I've at multiple times in my career, I've actually been in multiple departments. Like my first job in my career ever, I worked at a telephone company, and the telephone company had multiple companies it owned. It owned an ISP called UP.net, and it also owned the Berger Telephone Company that I worked for. And so sometimes my work on my expense report or my timesheet, I would have to put in for the telephone company, and sometimes I'd have to put it towards the ISP. That wasn't the only time I had to do that in my career. So multiple times I've had this where I've been in multiple departments. So when I thought about this request from the user, I started thinking about it going, that's not bad per se, right? I mean, it's very possible somebody could be part of multiple departments or have to write an expense report for another department. Even the current company I work for, if I had to do an expense report, but some other department was paying for it, I'd have to set it that so they know who to charge those costs if I were to go fly out or something like that. So it's something that is definitely a problem that we want to try to solve here. So the way to solve this is that we have a department object already right here. Okay, so we're going to change the design of this a little bit. We're going to say a manager could be in an array of departments. So we're just going to say, and there's a couple different ways we could do this. We could do it as a department array is one way to do it. We can make it part of a set. Array types are now written in brackets around them. Really? Okay. Hey, Xcode. I mean, rock on here, buddy. If that's the right answer, cool. So we have to take in the department here, but we're going to have to say that this is array. And we're going to say that it is of departments. And do we make it nil? Because we have to pass it something. What happens if they don't pass it in? Well, that we'd have to make it nullable. And we could do that here. If we made it nullable, we just have to make it nullable here. And then we could say, if you don't want to set the department for a manager, this would be bad, but you could do it. And then we can grab the department there. And we see here we have document type. That should be hard-coded to manager. This looks okay from a data class, I do believe here. If we think about it, does it meet all of our requirements? It has a given name, a surname, a first and last name, basically an email address, a title of the person, their department, which could be multiple, so the manager could be managing multiple departments. It turns out, ironically, that happens to me right now, actually. And then a document type. This is solid. I think that's solid. All right. That's our manager class. So we've got that converted over. Let's take a look back at what we also need. So we've got a department. We've got a manager. We've got, we already got employees, or the option of an employee. Instead of a user, we're calling them employees in this app, but it's the same thing. Once again, trying to keep this closer to the real world app that I wrote the last 2 expense report apps I wrote. I'm trying to keep the naming convention a little bit closer to that in the here. Let's go back to our Kotlin app here, though, and take a look, because we need the expense report, and then we need the expenses. And I don't remember if I used charge codes in this one or not. Charge codes can get a little bit complicated. Just explaining them, they're accountant nerd stuff, but we have expense types. That's right. Yeah, we would need an expense type, wouldn't we not? We would need an expense type. So expense type are what are you put on the report, right? Expense type could be air travel. It could be a cab. It could be your Uber. It could be a hotel room. It could be your internet, because a lot of companies let you write off your internet. They'll give you money. They'll say, hey, every month you go to expense report back, and we'll give you $50 towards your expense, towards your internet fees, because of the fact that you work from home. They may give you like partial of your cell phone. Oh, we'll give you $50 for your cell phone. So an expense type is basically a type of expense that you'd put on an expense report. That's what its goal is. And you'll see here that I got lazy about this, and I basically just put them in a list. So I had one so this is I know why I did this. It wasn't to be lazy. It was to prove out that this is something totally legal in a document database that wouldn't necessarily be the way you do it in a relationship database. In a relationship database, how we would do this is we would have a table called expense types, and we would basically have all the expense types listed in those. So maybe there's 100 of those, right? Here's the realism of expense types. As a person that uses for a accounting firm, they don't change that often. In fact, because of the general ledger, or the GL, they only change usually once a year. Because if they change any more often than that, then they'd have to report their finances differently, and that sucks. And most accountants don't want to do that. And so since every year the IRS requires a report for them for taxes, at least in the US, and in most countries in the world it's a yearly thing, they get audited, it's called. They basically make it so they only can change your expense types once a year. Now, given that the expense types don't change that often, there's a couple of advantages to this. Well, technically speaking, I could just put these in a pre-built database that's just embedded in my app, and I don't have to wait for the server. If the server is not available, I don't care. I already have them embedded. And if they do change, I'll just use replication to get the new version. That's a cool thing. The second thing is, since they're kind of static and stuff, I don't need to make 100 documents for these. I can just make one document that has all the expense reports inside of it. And that's called document embedding, where we basically can embed child objects. And this is something that you can't necessarily, you could do it in some products like SQL Server and stuff, but the performance isn't as good as it is here. Like in SQL Server, you can have a column of JSON. Just basically just like a JSON object, and it could be whatever you want, but you can't run indexes on it. So other database engines do allow you to do this, that are relationship database wise, but they're not, it's nowhere near as slick as a document database. Document databases just do this, and it's like, it's beautiful how they handle it. His syntax is great, really easy to query it. It's a first-class citizen, you know, unlike, like I said, some of those other platforms, not a first-class citizen at all, really hard to query. But for us, we have this built into us that we can have embedded objects and stuff. So, you know what? I like this. I think we're going to do that because of that reason only, in the sense that it gives us the ability to play around with this little embedded document stuff and show that off as a demo. So I'm pretty sure that's why I did it that way. I'm pretty sure I talked to the education team when we were talking about building that app, because I built the Kotlin version for the education team, and I'm pretty sure we came down to the solution of, yeah, we should probably do this because that would give us a good demo of showing that off. So let's go expense types. We're going to make a new Swift file. We'll call that expense types. I'm having a problem with my keyboard hitting E's. And I have a keyboard switch that I use. It's a Thunderbolt keyboard switch because I switch between a Mac and my PC. I'm running a Windows ARM development box from Microsoft. And that switch causes my keyboard keys to sometimes stick. I know that because if I take it off and run it without the keyboard switch, they run just fine. And I don't know why. It's been aggravating me quite a bit, to the point where I really don't log directly into the Windows box anymore. I just use remote desktop, so I probably can get away with just not even using the switch anymore. I've literally been debating this a lot. The Windows Dev Box is pretty interesting. It's a ARM device that Qualcomm, I think, makes the processor. Oops. I forgot to tell it. I forgot to tell it what to do with that. I was talking too much here. Let's see here. Can you convert this Kotlin classes to Swift? And then let's go ahead and do that and get another conversion set here. So our AI overload's doing all the work for us. It's telling us all the same information. Codables are the same thing as serializable. Codables also have encoding and decoding built into them, so they're a protocol of a protocol. They make our life easier. You can see here this is a pretty easy one. So we'll just copy that code, bring it in. We know the reason why it did that, because we did this before, so we don't have to listen to it talk. And we could just kind of go through here, get rid of our second foundation import, and we have expense types in the bank here. It even got our array stuff right here. Let's see here, did it? So this is our envelope. This would be our expense types array. We do have to have one document ID because we're gonna have one document. It's gonna have all the expense types inside of it. We do need a document type, and this would be, it'd be hard coded though when we make one of these. Yes, please. Oh, wait. Come back, CoPilot. There we go. CoPilot, writing our code for us also. So, immutable property. I don't want it to be, so that means I have to do an init. So here's the thing about Swift, that Matt was complaining about. It's a lot of typing, right? You have to do those constructors. Technically speaking, you don't have to do constructors. You only have to do constructors is when you want to set a value to a default value. Then you have to get the constructors involved. So I didn't need an init method. The init method would be automatically assumed to be all the properties. However, I keep doing that because of the fact that I need that documents type hard-coded. And so because of that, we're going to do something like this. And we're going to say in here, we'll say this is string. VI key bindings, don't fail me now. And then we're going to say self dot document type equals expense types. And that should fix that problem. So there's our constructor now. We didn't need it, but we do want to set it. Like, we don't need it up here because we only have one field. The init will just work. Down here, we do need it because I want to hard code that document type to expense types, so I don't have to ever set it. So I'm going to only take in 2 objects into this instead of 3, all 3 properties. And that way I don't have to worry about having a bug in my app with the document types. And that's just a pro tip if you're using this particular methodology to how to do these, do documents with Couchbase Lite. All right, let's see here. So that looks pretty good. We got our expense type. I'm just checking here, name and a subtype, and a subtype is just a array of strings. And if I remember right, I think this is a, I think there's some charge codes or in the subtypes. I don't remember. In the real world, you would have, this would be a far more complicated object, the expense type. You would have to have an expense code, charge code, basically. The charge code would be linked to the GL, the general ledger. And that would know, like, who to charge for it. And those things can be really complicated depending on how companies do it. Some companies will do it where a couple of the digits of the first part of the code is the actual, which bucket in the general ledger to put it in, and you have to kind of extract those out in order to calculate it. It can get really complicated, charge codes, but I think in this version I didn't use charge codes because I didn't want to get into the super complicated parts of that. We can find out though real quickly here because we're going to cheat also. In that Kotlin code, I have a pre-built database, and in that pre-built database is the document for that expense reports. And so since I just want to kind of reuse that, why can't I just take that database and use it in my Swift app? And the answer is I totally can. And so that's what we're going to do. In the assets folder here, I should have some database stuff. You'll see here I've got expense types JSON, and then I've got import managers. And what this does is this builds me my database. And so what I'm going to do in the hopes of being lazy here is I'm just going to copy that whole entire folder into my Swift app. And that way I have the same exact stuff. So here, I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go over here, take that expense here. I'm going to grab the Capella. I think I already have a license file. Yeah, I don't need that. But I'm going to grab the Capella and the assets folder because I'll need both those for later. Just grab those and copy those over into my Swift app, and then I have those assets already there. And that should have copied them. Now what I need to do is just make sure I remember how this works. And that's usually important, right? So if we look here, this should be the CB-Lite utility that I use for making the database file. The problem's going to be is that the database file that I made is for Couchbase Lite 3.0, not 3.1. And that's the starting.zip file. If I were to unzip this, this is actually a starting.couchbase Lite 2, CB Lite 2 file, and inside there you'll have your database, right? So that's a problem. I want to make that a Couchbase Lite 3.1 database. What is the difference between a 3.0 and a 3.1 database? Why do I even care about this in my mobile app? This seems like it's a lot of nerd stuff, Aaron. Well, we care about it because our SDK has a match. And what's going to happen is if I open this database in the mobile app, like my Swift app right now, it's going to see it's on Couchbase Lite 3.0, and it's going to automatically upgrade it. You say, okay, well, problem solved, right? That takes processing time. And that processing time, that means I'm chewing battery life. And if I'm thinking about this from my end user experience, do I really need to be wasting battery on my phone here that I have in my hand of the end user because of the fact that I was too lazy to migrate the database to 3.1 and save all the time of doing that? The answer is no. The user experience is king in mobile. May not always be that way in web, but in mobile, it's always king. So that means that we need to go through and update this. Now, the good news is if we take a look at this, we just have some scripts that just builds this thing. So all I should have to do is get CB-Lite right here. I need to get the 3.1 version of that. And then once I get that, I can pop it in the Linux and the Mac folder here. And there is a Win version, but this is for not because this is a Swift app and there is no ability to build in Windows. So see you Windows, sayonara, and also Linux because there is no Linux version for SwiftUI. So you're on Mac only. Not that I don't like those platforms, but sorry, folks, this is a Mac thing only. Let's go ahead and do the Googles. We'll say Couchbase. So how do we do this? We say Couchbase Lite. And it's called command line tool, and we want it GitHub. That should be enough to tell it how to find it. The mobile tools. Here we go. These should be the CB-Lite tool. Exactly. See, look at this. Yikes. 3 years ago. That's not the branch we want. Let's see what's going on here. They better have a release 4.3.1, otherwise I'll be very upset. Let's go to the releases and see what we got here. Oh boy. All right, corporate overlords are going to take over here and make me log in. We're going to switch the screen for a second while I log into my corporate overlords because it's a protected repo. And if I don't do that, then I can't log in, but I can't let you see that information. So sorry, folks. In the interest of protecting myself and everybody else, let's just move that over and I'll log in real quick here. I have to log in with a super secret code I can't tell you about. It is not 1234. If anybody thought that was the code, the pin code, that was not it. You're wrong. All right, here we go. I typed in the code in Magic Sauce. Look at this, we have this. Now, if you are going to Couchbase and you're just a user, you don't have to type all that corporate stuff in. My account, I can modify all this stuff because I am a user inside of here. So my GitHub user, even though it's my private GitHub user, has rights to a lot of these repos that Couchbase owns because I'm an employee there. That logically makes sense. So because of that, our organization requires single sign-on or multi-factor authentication, to be more exact. And so because of that, I have to sign on multiple times. But you can go to this repo right now, and it won't ask you for any of that stuff. Just anybody that works for Couchbase, it checks and says, oh, your GitHub user has the ability to do stuff in here. We need to confirm you are who you are because otherwise we're not going to let you do that stuff. So you can see here, unfortunately, this makes me sad, but it's only a Mac x86 64 build, not a ARM build, which kind of stinks. I will have to talk to Jim Borden, that's the person that built this, and see if they plan on making ARM a target. They probably need to, because when x86 is going away, its days are numbered, and I think it's just a checkbox for them. Most of this is written in C++, if I remember right. No, it says it's dangerous. Danger Will Robertson. Are you sure you want to download this? Yeah, we do want to download it. We're kind of cool with that. So I'm going to get this tool downloaded real quick here. And let's just go here, find our downloads folder. Hopefully, nothing too scary. We just unzip this, and in our folder should be that Couchbase Lite. It should be under bin. There's our bin. And he's got, lib should be empty. I think that's a build artifact, to tell you the truth. Because all the libraries should get linked in, so there shouldn't be any need for that. So let's go here, change this out. We'll move that one to the trash. We'll put this in here instead. Now there's one last thing we have to do. We're going to open this directory in the command line. And we have to make sure that let's see here. I am in my directory. Let's see here. Where am I? I'm in here. So let's go here and see if we see the asset folder. We see the asset folder. Let's go to assets. No. AI overlords. Assets. What? Thank you. We're going to go into Mac. In order for this to work, that has got to be executable. Okay? And anything downloaded from the internet, I don't care what it is not executable out of the box because that'd be a security thing. So we need to change the permissions on this. Now I'm an old school Unix guy. I started in Solaris, so I only know the old way of doing this. I know there's probably a new fancy way to do it that all the kids are doing, but I'm super old and I don't know that answer. What I can tell you is that each one of the parts of a file are a bit mask. And so the very first part is the user. And so that's the first number. The second one is the group. And the third one is the, what the heck is it called? I can't remember. It's like a pointer, basically. And so if I say 755, what I'm saying is that this user here, which is me, has read, write, and execute permissions. So how does that happen? Read is the number 4, because that's a byte, or a bit, right? Write is number 2, okay? And execute is number 1. So if you add those 3 bits together, you would get the number 7. If I want read and write, that would be the number 4 and 2, 6. If I want read and execute, that would be 4 and 1, which would be 5. So what I'm saying here is that my user can do everything to this. I can read, I can write it, which means I can delete it, because if you need to be able to, if you want to delete something, you have to have write access to it, right? So I can read, write, and I can execute it. The other users can just read it and execute it. You need to be able to read to execute. And that's it. And so 755, if I do a chmod, it says change mods, the bit flags on this particular file. I'm going to change those to be that. And this all has to do with binary bit masks. And that should do it. If I do it LA again, which will tell me everything about it, you'll see now that this thing should be executable. You'll see here now we have this little X icon, which means executable. I do believe there's an ability now to do this with like characters instead and stuff. I mean, I've seen some docs on that. I just don't know, to tell you the truth. I just know that this works, and I've been doing it that way for over 20 years. And as long as it keeps working, I'm going to keep doing it that way. Why change, right? I'm going to take the starting file and delete that though. So I'm going to remove, and I need to remove starting.zip because we're going to build it. So we also don't need that DS store file. That's because I opened it. That's a resource fork for network file systems. If I open it from another Mac, it'll make that file, but it's not needed. And the git ignore, I usually drop it so that you don't see those resource forks. Let's see here. So I have 2 shell script files. Let's do code this. Oops. Code slash this? Or is it slash this like this? Okay, we'll just open up code. Bomp, bomp, bomp. I don't have the S code in my path. This is a new machine. I normally have the S code in my path, and I just type the word code in and period, and it'll open that up in that directory. I have not done that. So since I've chose poorly, we're going to open folder and take a look at some shell scripts here. Shell scripting is your friend, folks. If you're developers and you're a Mac developer, learning some shell scripting is your ticket to automation. It is pretty awesome. So I've got two shell scripts here. I've got an import manager and an import response type. And both of these are just shell scripts. It's a language. Shell is a programming language you can write in. It's a very simple one. You can Google this and find out great details here, but I'm going to just double check what this does real quick. So it says that there's an expense type JSON file, and right here are my expense types. I have a document ID. I have the document set to the expense types. You can see here I have a category called communication and a subcategory of subtypes called cell phone and internet access. And I have another one called meals and entertainment, and then all the subcategories. I have office, and I have a bunch of office equipment. I have other, and there's a bunch of other information, transportation, and a bunch of information. This looks right. Okay, I'm pretty comfortable with that. Just make sure I'm comfortable in the skin I live in. Let's see here. And then managers, here's our managers. So we have Jordy. Where did I steal these names from? Ivor, Fizborn, Brandy. I don't know where I came with these names from. Usually I use something a little bit different than this. Usually I use Star Wars characters' names or movie character names, but for whatever reason, these are not that. So I think it's because it's for the education team. I think they told me I had to use like real mock data. I couldn't just use like movie references. So I probably just really generated these. I honestly don't remember. And it was like about 7 months ago, but that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Let's see here. So based on that, I think that this data looks okay. So what do these shell scripts do exactly? Well, if you see here, it defines the file, and then it defines the database I want to save that information into. And then you'll see here that it says how many things are inside the file that I want to get out. And then I go through that, and I use a library called JQ. So JQ is the most important thing. I have to make sure I have that installed. I didn't put that in my requirements, but I just remembered it now. So we need to do a brew install JQ, and this would be the same thing in Windows as a winget. Winget is Microsoft's package library management system. And we do not have JQ installed, so I'm glad we did that. So what the heck is JQ? JQ allows you to automate the process of reading in JSON files, and you can process them in a shell script then, and it's pretty badass awesome. JQ works also in Windows, and if you're on Windows, you could use it with things like PowerShell, or if you have like the Linux subsystem installed, you can use it inside of Linux. It is one of my favorite tools if I'm dealing with JSON files, to tell you the truth. It allows me to do all kinds of crazy stuff. You do want to read the documentation of JQ because it is super duper powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. Also, great confusion because it's really complicated, everything you can do. But complicity, you just read the docs, my friends. If you're going to use it, understand how the things that it can do and can't do. I'm doing really simple things, but you can literally just say, hey, loop through all these JSON files, look for this one property, and if it has this kind of information, and then print it out to the screen or throw it to a file or something like that. It has all kinds of superpowers inside of it, JQ. So pro tip, learn JQ if you have to do a JSON, and you're going to be great. I have two really simple things. That just reads this file in, uses JQ to process it, and then basically sends it over to the CDLite. The reason why I had to use JQ in the first place is because of the fact I wanted to get the ID out of the JSON file. And I need to provide that as the ID of the document itself. So that's the real ticket of what's going on here. You'll see here there's a document ID. That document ID field, that's what I use for the document ID to the database. That's the primary key, or the thing that I'm saving. That's what makes it unique, basically. And the same thing with managers. I do the same thing. For each one of the managers, I have a key called manager ID. That's also going to be the document ID. So we're going to duplicate that in the same spot so I make it easy on myself. They don't have to be the same, but in my app, they are going to be because it makes it easier for me. So you'll see here in managers, we're actually looping through, and there's a bunch of different managers. So it's going to go through each line of that JSON file. It's going to loop through them. It's going to find that ID and make that so that we know what it is. We then pull it out so that we could put it in the command line. Because the Couchbase Lite document create utility needs the ability to have a document ID that's unique for each document. So that's the reason why we did that. So if we look here, we've got these shell scripts. So how does the magic work then, Aaron? Show me some magic. Show me some laziness as a developer, because that's what we're doing here, right? We're trying to have some code generate some stuff for us so that we can be super lazy. Well, all we have to do is just run these things. So I'm going to run first expense type.json. And when not JSON, yikes, shell scripts. We're going to run the shell scripts, Aaron. Jeez, get this right. Import. We'll import the expense types first. And if I just run this, it's going to say, hey. What? No. Cannot verify this app is free from malware. What? No. No. All right. Overlords. How do you solve this? There is the ability to run unsigned applications. And boy, I'm going to have to tell Jim about this, because that's a problem. We have signatures. We shouldn't need to, this shouldn't come up. Let's see here. I have to remember, though, it is under the... It's normally under the security of encrypting your disk and stuff. So privacy and security. And there used to be an option in here that would show you to allow... Yeah, right here it is. So see here, under security. So security, privacy, and settings. Under security, there is a say. Right here you'll see Couchbase Lite was blocked because it's not from an identifiable developer. Apple trying to keep malware off your machine. So what I'm going to do is say allow anyways. And it's going to ask me for my fingerprint. I'm going to put that on my laptop keyboard, and there we go. So I'm going to allow that app. And so I'm going to close my system settings, and we're going to try that again. Round 2. Now it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? Well, I kind of told you that earlier inside of the system preferences. But since you're going to double ask me, I'm going to say open anyways. So my other problem. I think I have a README file for this. I do have a README file for this. I already have it open in VS Code. I should read my own notes to myself. Because I kind of wrote myself notes because this happened to me last time. I tell you right here, first you must create the database. And there's no easy way to do that in a shell. So I tell you the first thing to do is do this. And this will create the database. And once you do that, then you can run the 2 scripts. So I wrote myself notes. Pro tip to the developers out there. Do this for yourself. Write yourself some notes. And I just control C out of it again, and now my shell script should run. There we go. And then I could do the other create. So in summary, what I did was I wrote myself, future Aaron, a note to help himself, because he was not going to help himself. He was going to make his life painful. To remind him how to do this. And we just loaded all those managers now into a database. And we can check that database because we can use the VS Code plugin. Check that. Once we do that, we can embed that database into our mobile app, and then we can use that for our data generation tool. That's our goal here. That's what we're doing here. If you're wondering, you're playing at home going, Aaron, what's the end goal of this? I'm not sure what you got going on here. What are you cooking? It was, I need to get this sample data loaded in so I can use that in my data generator in my mobile app to make it so I can start building expense reports. So what I should be able to do is any Couchbase Lite database, any file that ends in CB Lite 2, our plugin will be able to open. So I'm just going to click open on this. When I click open on this, I should see a default and a default. And you can see here, here's all my documents. You'll see this is the expense types. And if I were to look at that, you can see here are the subjects of those, right? And I can just open the full item if I just say get documents. And then I can prettify this if I go to go, or view command palette, and let's go to format document right here. And now it formats what makes it look all nice and neat. So that's in my database. So I just took all that crap I had in files, threw it in my mobile database, and just said, stick it there. I will use this later. So that's how easy it is to get data from a JSON file into a database that's pre-built, we call it. And I can just take a look at one of these managers to make sure that manager is right. So I can just say get document on this, and I can go to view, command palette, and say format document. Normally I should have a linter set up on this that automatically formats that. I haven't gotten that far yet because this is just my beta machine that's running beta versions of stuff, so I don't have it fully set up. But that's a real manager. That's good enough for me. No, it's not. Oh, cuckabot. That's not going to work, folks. Cancel Christmas. Okay, what's not cancel Christmas? That sounds terrible. What's not cancel Christmas, folks? Christmas is still on. Christmas is still on. Santa will still deliver. We got a problem. Let's delete that database. Anybody can tell me in chat what the problem is. They'll see it. If you thought about this for a little while, what I did, you'll know what's going on here. I'll give it a few seconds to see if anybody in chat wants to figure out what's wrong. I should do a poll. I don't know how to do polls though. I should do a poll on this if people want to guess what's going on here. But I don't know how to do a poll, so we're just going to answer that. I'll just give you the answer. I made the department an array, okay, but it's not an array right now. It's a single field, right? And that's going to be a problem because if it's not an array, when we serialize it, the serializer is going to say this data doesn't match. It's going to say, wait, it told me it's an array of strings. I only got one of these things. That's not the same thing. And in the world of encoding and decoding, those little tiny properties will kill you every time. So we're going to have to tweak this a little bit. We're going to have to do something like this. And that fixes it. That tells our JSON file that the department's going to be an array of people. And so we do need to make a couple of these people just in multiple departments. I don't know why I have so many salespeople also. So I'm just going to manually fix this because it's easier. I think there's only 20 of these managers, but I need to figure out like 2 departments that I can make have more than 1 department so I could test this multi-department theory. And you'll see here I got CoPilot installed because Copilots are, let's do this. Let's also just copy this and we can paste it in. I probably could just do a substitute with this, right? Yeah, let's do this. We're going to do some super laziness things here. We're going to say, I could do this VI, I guess, but we'll just use the edit, find, and replace feature here. So we're going to say search for this and replace it with this. Pro developer here, find and replace. Save you every time. You could do this in VI with the keyboard. And we'll say replace all and say I'm going to replace 2 more of these. That sounds wonderful. All right, so let's see here. What do we got next? We got human resources. We got human resources. I'm now checking to see what we have. We have engineering. I think I need to make another department outside of engineering, though. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make a... we'll make a couple different departments in engineering to start with. Oh, we also have human resources, actually. This is actually a good example. Payroll usually is inside of human resources. So I know we have one right here that is a payroll manager. We can make them part of a payroll department and a human resources department. So we got a couple different things we can do with our data here. All right, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about this, folks, that we can make this data look a little bit cooler inside of our mobile app. So, oop, I had to like cut that. Let's paste that back in. Let's copy this instead. So that is not copy. Undo. What's going on here? Okay. I guess I'm just bad typing today. Let's see here. So we're going to say human resources, but we're going to put little brackets around this so that's an array of a single record. And let's kill all these. We're going to do it for 4 records. Yes. And then let's find that payroll person. Let's do this and say they're also part of payroll. There's our first example of somebody that's in 2 departments. We have, I don't remember that person's name. Scroll down and find that person's name. Who was that? Wait, why do we have salespeople that still are not bracketed to sales? What's going on with my data here? So these are engineering, 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 engineering. That's all good. More engineers. Engineers are good. Human resources. So we have a human resource person here. Wait, I told that to be multiple people. I said that payroll. Let's save this real quick. Make sure I don't screw it up. Oh, there's 2 payroll managers. That's why. Oh, well, geez. Okay. Okay. We got 2 people. I like that. Sales. Why did this salesperson not go through? Right here, but the rest of them did. I got 2 people that didn't go through. Well, for 2 people, I'm not going to do a substitute. I'll just copy and paste. Make our life easier. Right, let's just do it here and do it here. All right, this is real stuff developed. This is what real developers do on a regular basis. They go through and tweak files for their sample data, and these are all the unglorious things, or all the things that don't look like they're awesome and have nothing to do with the fun parts of development, but are things that you just do as part of your job. So let's go through the engineering here and get these folks all fixed up here. Well, we'll say engineering is going to now equal engineering, but with a bracket here for it, meaning that is an array. Let's replace all those. And we have one only? That doesn't make sense to me. Huh. I did replace all of them, I think. Let's check here. Those all look right. So we have engineering, backend, engineering, cloud services. Here we go. Let's call this also their admin, because they're a vice president. We'll say that they're part of the admin group. That's usually a charge code for like your CEOs, your CFOs, your CIOs, anything that starts with a C. Usually they're in an admin group, and they charge those differently because those people usually have like weird stock options and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Just happen to know the accounting behind that. So I think that would be. I've got now an example of somebody that's in two departments. That's in HR and payroll, and I have another person that's in the admin and engineering group. And I think that's good, two solid examples of showing multi departments. We didn't go crazy with this example, right? But somebody asked for it, and I'm trying to be nice to people when people ask for things. So I think that's absolutely not a bad thing. Let's see here. No, I don't want to save this in title document. Okay. So we now have our file fixed up. Now we can just do the same thing over again. So we'll start by doing our expense report. Oh, I deleted the database. Hey, man. Let's see here. I deleted the database because I forgot. So I now have to go back to my document and recreate the database just by going to my README and remembering the command here, create, and create my database again. I deleted it because of the fact that I didn't have this stuff in array. And now I'm opening Figma by accident. Figma, go away. Let's cut and paste this in. Hit Control C. That stops it. And now I can run my two commands. So there's managers. And then let's go expense types also. My database should now have two types of documents inside of them. It should have 20 managers. And it should have one expense type. And that's my sample data I'm going to use for my starting database. So let's go ahead and just double check to make sure I didn't break this again. And if I didn't break it again, then we're good to go. So let's go here and say open database inside of VS Code. I have the Couchbase Lite plugin installed in VS Code so I can see these documents. Let me just get this document, make sure this looks good. That seems right. And if I go to view, command Padlet, and format, that should give me my formatting. That looks right. That looks good. I think we're good. All right. Mission accomplished. Close this window. I still think why did I have that open? I had it open somewhere else. Oh, I had it open on the desktop because I was using it to get the database out of the app to make sure that the database was right. So let's keep that open. Let's keep desktop open here. That's going to be our debugging tool we'll have here. So I like to keep things open, keep my workflow clean, and then I just basically minimize it and then go back to it when I need to. So that's pretty cool. So what did we just do? We just made some sample data for our mobile app. We kind of threw it into a mobile database that we can just kind of then bring into our app. Let's see here. Matt, clips. Max, I deleted the database. Oh no, this is bad. This is bad. I don't even know if I want to. I don't even know if I want to click on that. There are so many horror stories of people deleting the production database that it's not funny. I know that there's a memes going around about that. It's been 0 days since I deleted the production database or migrated the wrong database to production. Oh man, we've all done this at some point in time in our careers, made massive errors in the ways of the force. Have I ever done the 4 words you never want to hear? That's correct, Matt. They are. I have never deleted the database in production. I have never accidentally broke the production database. However, I've made far worse mistakes than that. I have made, I guess I could tell a quick story here while we're getting our files up here. I worked at a telephone company, I told you. That was my first career. And in 1998, I was pretty new there. I was only 2 years there. I worked as a programmer, part-time. Let's play Never Have I Ever with dev mistakes. Well, this wasn't even a dev mistake. This is far worse. This was an arrogant mistake I made. I lived 2 lives when I worked at the telephone company. I worked as a programmer, and I kind of managed the ISP side of things. And my job, that was later, probably the last couple years of my career at Barrier Telephone. When I started out, I was just a programmer that was really good at hardware. So I wrote a lot of software that automated all the infrastructure that we had for the ISP. That all the, we figured out how to get it to work with our internal database, and we could get billing done and all those kind of things. We had our own help desk system that we wrote internally. We had all kinds of stuff to manage our servers. We knew exactly what was going on with the servers. This is the days before cloud. You gotta remember, we had like hundreds of servers because we're ISP, and we hosted other people's web servers. They called it co-locating back in the day. It was before we had the cloud. This is 1997, remember, folks. No clouds back then, but you could literally send us your hardware, and we'd put it in our data center and host it for you. And we'd charge you a fee for that, and you'd be in the ISP, which means that your server is super fast. You're on a very, very fast internet pipeline then. And thousands of companies would do this for us. Well, I worked also as a telephone engineer part-time because I was really kind of interested in learning the other side of the business. And so I was the assistant to the person that managed our telephone switch. And there was a second reason I wanted this, because I wanted to be able to automate the telephone switch and be able to talk to it via code and stuff. The only way to do that was learn how the telephone switch worked, and that's what his job was. He did the hardware. And I was kind of like, I could do the software stuff. So anyways, we have these things called packs, and these packs, these big cards that go to the telephone switch, there's duplicates of all of them. In case one card goes bad, the telephone switch will automatically switch over to the backup card. And this is needed because telephone companies can't go down. There are things like 911 always has to work, right? So everything's redundant, and that's on purpose. Well, Tim, our switch guy, was out because it's a very long story why he was out, but he was out, and I was the backup, so I was the switch guy for a couple days. And a card came in, a new card to replace one of our bad cards, and you can tell where the story's going already, right? I turned off the card in the switch software. I went through and said, hey, I'm going to turn this bad card out so I can pull it out of the switch, and I'm going to pop in this new good card, and I'm going to turn it back on. The card's already bad, so we already have the primary card working. This is the secondary card I'm backing up. And I went to the switch, and one of the employees that I work with was asking me some questions about the switch. He's like, hey, man, this is pretty cool. You're only been here 2 years. You're already like replacing cards in the switch and stuff. And I turned around to talk to Dave, and I said, yeah. And I grabbed for the card, and I took the 2 clips out of it. And of course, it was the primary card that I pulled out. And the second I saw the red light, I pushed it back in and then proceeded to pretend like it didn't happen. But it happened. And at that point in time, the telephone switch crashed. And it crashed for an entire 2 towns. And for the next 5 hours, I spent fixing the switch. And then I had to drive to every remote building that we had that had a telephone switch that was a child of that switch. That's how telephone companies work. They have basically a big switch, and then every so many miles, they have these little child switches. I had to go to each one of those and reboot it to have it connect back to the parent switch. That was my punishment for making that mistake that my boss, the owner of the company, made me do. And then when the police came to the office to ask why the telephone service was down, I had to explain to the police officers that I had made a mistake, and I had to own it. And he said that everybody that comes here and asks the question of why it's down, you'll explain to them why it's down, and you will not lie about it. You'll be very honest. And I was very honest about it. I felt like about this small that day. And I learned that mistakes suck. And we're all human, we make those. Afterward, a couple weeks ago, the owner was super cool about it. He said, hey, look, you made a mistake. You owned it, you fixed it, and you didn't ask for any help, and you got it figured out, and then you went and came up with a plan, and you implemented your plan, and you got us back up and running in about 5 hours. He said, that's not bad. Don't do it again. What's his final line, right? So we all make mistakes. The gist of the story is we all make mistakes. I've made some pretty big ones in my career. That was a pretty bad one. And so that's probably the worst mistake in my entire career I've made. It's the thing when I think of like the worst possible mistakes I've ever made, that's really, really high on it. In general, really, even in life, that's a pretty bad mistake, not just work. All right, folks, so we have our managers and we have our expense types now not only do we have them as models in our code, we also have those in a sample database that we can bring into our app to use. We've got department figured out, right? Oh crap, no we don't. This is going south for us today, isn't it? Because departments in my app have two things. They have a department name and number. Crud. Why do I have a department number? Because real departments have real department numbers in HR. That's right. IT used to be 53 at the hospital I worked at. I had it memorized. It's part of the charge code. That's how the GL works. Be the job, big or small. Do it right or not at all. I say this to myself all the time to remind myself that it doesn't matter how many times you do something. You got to do it right. Otherwise, you're just going to shoot yourself. Just do it right. Don't screw around. So I've made another mistake. I just said that departments were strings, but they're not just strings. They're actually a full object that has some properties to it. More mistakes here. So let's go back to our managers file because that's where the departments live. Oh, so we need to replace this. So let's go to find and replace. This shouldn't take that long to fix. So we're going to find this and we're going to fix this again with, not with a space. We want department, but we have to say that this is a new object. And then we're going to say sales, but we have to give it the property name. What was it? Department number, and I think, and then department name, I think was the other one. Department name and department number. Do we really need name and number? I mean, it's a department. Do we really need to put name in front, department name in front of it? I don't think so. Executive decisions coming along here, folks. This will probably break my app somewhere. I'll fix it. I should have just refactored that so I didn't have to do this. So look at, I've made another mistake because I'm getting sloppy now, folks. I just decided I was going to change it one spot, but now I'll manually have to change it everywhere because I just didn't do the refactor. It's almost Friday, right? You're saying, wait, weren't you just off all week? No, I was not off all week. And then we just want the speed number. Let's see here. Department, that is fixed. So now we just have name and number. Two properties we have to keep track of. So that means inside of our file here, we just have to go through. Oop, that's our Kotlin. We need to go back to Visual Studio Code. We would say that this is name. So we'd say name is colon sales and then comma and then our department, our number. I don't know if number is a good field name. Shoot. I saved that, didn't I? Number could be a data type in some languages. I usually try to stay away from that word because it's so close to a keyword that it's usually not a good idea. I'll just do depth number. And let's just do. All right, I feel better about that now. So dep number is going to be the name of there, and I think number is also a data keyword in Swift. I'm pretty sure. So let's go instead of number. We're going to say this is dep number, and of course, we'll just make it a character. And then we need to close our object. And that should do it. Let's try that. Close this out so we can see it. That looks right. Let's just reformat this. An array. We have a new object in the array. The object's got a name and a depth number inside of it. That seems right to me. We need to do the same thing for human resources here. But instead we're going to call it human resources instead of sales. And then the department number will be 2. And we'll just replace all those. And we have the human resources people replaced, but now we have these people. This could be a little bit more complicated. It may be easier just to do this by hand because there's only 2 of them. And then we would have to say, though, this is name, and then we would say this is dep number. And that is that. I only had 2 of these like that. Oh, nope, that's wrong. That is super wrong. So it's 2, and then we'd have to make another object. We need to format this. So let's format this so I can read this properly. It'd be something like this. Right, and then we would say, I don't really like JSON like that. And then what we do is we do this, and we'd say this is payroll. And this is type 3. And then we take the comma out because there is only 2 records. And we copy this because then we could paste it in for the other person that we had that was like that. That's not the person. Where is it? This person. Alright, so that fixes them. That fixes them. Okay, we're almost fixed. We just gotta fix engineering. We'll just fix one of these and then we can, no. Okay, VI, don't be a jerk here all night. Let's see. Let's find out the first engineering record and fix that. So we're gonna say name. And then we're gonna say engineering. We're gonna put, oh, squiggly brackets here. Not a pipe, a squiggly bracket. And then we're gonna say dep number. And this is gonna be number 3. And that works. So we're gonna find another engineering example. I'm gonna say replace that with this. And that should fix all of them except for the vice president. Yeah, because they're also an admin. And so this one we can just fix by hand. So let's just do this, make an object. And then we can just make it a new line like this. And then we'll just manually fix this. And then we're gonna say, this is gonna be name. And then we're gonna say dep number, and we're gonna say this is 100. And that should be right, and that should be the end of our document. And then we need to make a new document. Why is this mad? Oh, we forgot the comma. That'll fix that. And then now it's bad because I don't have a record, but I can just copy this now. Actually, I can use VI for YY. That stands for Yake. And then paste as P, or period to put. And then I could just say this is also admin. This is admin's 100, engineering is 5. There we go. And now we should have all of our departments fixed. All right, I feel better about this. Fixing this before I get to my code and realizing this is a problem is a good thing. I want to open desktop back up because that's where we left it. And now we're going to go back and fix our file real quick here because we know that that database is garbage now. So we're going to say remove rm-rf starting.cblight. That will remove the database. Then we're going to tell the Mac, we're going to create the database again. And then we're going to go through and run our 2 shell scripts. Manager, create managers, and where is our expense type? There's our expense type. We'll open up a new window and make sure that the database still works. Our example folder, let's see here, should have it memorized here. Now we can just go to Files, open that up, make sure our database works, that we didn't break it in the grand scheme of things, and then we can move back to our Swift app and try to get this loaded in and get this working. Let's get document. That works. So Couchbase Lite didn't break. That's important, right? The tool is allowing us to read the file. Expenses should be the last document, technically speaking, so it should be down here. It is, and that's still working. Okay, so our managers are opening, and also our expense types are still opening, so that means my data entry that I did, my Mad Russian data entry, did not break things. Last thing, I need to close this database, because this database, I don't want to corrupt it. We'll minimize both these. Just keep that open just in case. We can clear our... we can get back out of here. This should be our just main code directory. Now we're good. We're back in our source. All right, let's go back to Xcode. So we've got managers. We've got departments figured out. We've got expense types figured out because we have those all set up. The ability to read those. We have expense reports figured out because we converted those using ChatGPT. Hey, app build off. Welcome. Here for the Swift goodness. Hey, well, buddy, first time chatter, welcome to the channel to start out with. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. There is some Swift goodness going on here. I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but there really is. I'm going to follow you real quick here, just so I can keep track of you. If you stream, shout out when you're streaming and stuff. Welcome to the community. There's some Discord links in my profile if you want to go hang out with some cool developers that are doing Swift stuff. Join the Dev Club. And obviously, if you're interested in Couchbase Lite, our mobile database that we're using today, go over to Couchbase Lite. Couchbase's Discord, and you can join the mobile fun over there too. I've got an expense report here. I've got the data type, and I'm pretty confident that this works okay. One of the things, real quick here, is going to probably play a part in our future problems is the double field for dollar amounts. That's right, but we're going to have to do some magic there eventually to keep that down to 2 digits, and that'll be something that we'll have to play with in every currency, let me tell you. If you're a mobile developer, you're writing in multiple platforms and stuff, currency is a big problem. Date, time, and currency are 2 number 1 things that end up causing nothing but headaches when you're saving data and trying to use multiple mobile platforms to exploit that data. I can tell you that from experience. It's not great. So we see we have expense report manager. We have an employee department, employee DAO. That's our data access object and expense types. The only thing I think we're missing is, let's go look at some Kotlin code right here. I think we're missing the actual expense itself, a standard expense. Oh boy, I do remember this now. Oh, this was a pain in the old rear end, to tell you the truth. The serializer made this pretty hard for me. Kotlin date time is a kind of a mess right now in Android because of the changes between Kotlin, pure Kotlin, and JVM. I can just tell you that I'm using the Kotlin serializer in my Kotlin version of this app, and not great. We're going to make a new file for the standard expense. We're going to call it standard expense. Got a new Swift file with foundation, and that looks great. Let's go ahead and go back to our chat, our AI overlords, and say, hey, can you convert this Kotlin file to Swift? And tell our AI overlords to do that. Oh, I think I accidentally hit enter, so now it's trying to do the previous thing. Yeah, that's me. Oh no, hey, it did it. Yay me. Oh, date is an int 64. Oh. I think your video is locked up. The stream looks locked up. Yikes. Let me double check my Twitch is over here. And let's see, Twitch/Biazal. Am I broke? Yeah. No. Actually, my video is still working over here. Oh, working now. Well, I could tell you that I've made some mistakes in life, and one of the mistakes is Discord keeps hogging my camera. And when I open Discord by accident, it takes over my mic and my camera for a few seconds. I get this message that says, "Hey, Discord is changing audio sources." I'm like, "No, don't do that." I'm going to close Discord again. I had opened it to find the name of the dev club, and I'm just going to close it because it tends to cause more problems when it's open while I'm streaming. And once again, I don't know what to say, right? That seems weird. Seems like you should be able to keep Discord open. I have a lot of complicated hardware, I guess, and I have multiple audio sources up the yin yang, and I think maybe that's what's going on it. Oh, Matt says he thinks it was on his end. Okay. Refresh fixed it. Well, I'm glad to hear that. But I can tell you that if my audio goes out and I have Discord open, I know exactly what's happening. Discord is stealing my audio source. I was having that last week. All right, let's see here. Let's grab our code here that it generated, and then we'll just kind of take a look at it and see whether or not it's going to work for us. I can tell you already the answer is no. We're not doing date times with int64s. That seems terrible. So we already know that our AI overlords have not really done us any favors here. Well, they've done some favors, but not all. Like right here, date. That's a date. There's a date field in Swift. We can use date. And we can say this is date. And we can say that's equal to date now. We'll default to that, and then if the user wants to select a different date, they can. Lack of agreements or harmony between perhaps person, things, or ideas. Seems to be following a strict definition. Between persons or things or ideas. Seems to be following a strict definition. I'm a little confused on that, Matt. Does that start? Oh, Discord, yes. Yeah, okay. Yes, I agree with you on that. Again, these dollar amounts, double is the answer for that, for currency. It really is in Swift, at least. But getting those things to work is going to be, I wouldn't say a huge pain in the butt, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to think about in a little bit here, but not, that's future errand problems, not current errand problems, right? So let's see here. We've added a bunch of code into our thing here. We'll just make sure it builds real quick. I'm not a fan of adding 100 things in and then building and going, oh, geez, nothing works. And then you're trying to go through and fix 1,000 errors, right? I know I changed department name and number, so those are probably all really upset, right? We refactored that, and I didn't refactor it properly. So let's just go to find and replace. There must be a find and replace in this, right? Wait, can I just do VI for this? 143 substitute. That did not work. Colon 1,43 substitute / nope. Okay, so the VI key bindings for Xcode do not support regular expression substitutions. Apple, you're not watching my stream, but if you were, come on, really? Can you just like not do that? All right. There's got to be a find and replace in Xcode, right? Usually it's under the it's under the find menu, not edit. So let's see here. Find and replace. Let's find the word department name and replace it with name. And let's do all those. Okay. Less errors are good. We're going to find department number. And next time we're not going to do this. Next time we're going to refactor properly so that it does it for us. The DUP number. Oh. And that should fix all of our build errors. This is why we have IDEs with refactoring. What is it mad now about? Expected name number. Dept. I put D part instead of dep number. That hurts. That hurts. Oh, no more reds. Uh-oh. Matt sent me a GitHub link. This has got to be good. Let's see if the universal control is working for this. It is. Okay, cut and paste is working. No, the computer says no. No. I don't think they're going to work right away on that, man. I think that's if I depend on that for Christmas morning present, I'm gonna be a very sad child when I go underneath the Christmas tree and see that it's not there. Yeah, I'm just happy that I can do like yank, copy, paste, move the cursor around. Honestly, that's great. Buffering works right in it, and periods and with buffering works. I'm okay. Substitution's hard. I get it. I'm not going to be a complainer here when it's just that works and that's good enough. Let's build one more time. I think the build is working right. I was talking. We got one warning. Wait, user was defined but never used. Consider replacing it with something else. It's used right here in the if statement. What are you talking about? You can't say it's not used and then have it the very next line, ain't used. Xcode, this is beta 3. Xcode. Not cool. Not cool for calling out something and then I go look at it and then it's like, oh, I made a mistake. Sorry. Go away. It's cool. It's used. It's used. All right. So Xcode. We're on for folks new to the channel or new to what we're doing here. We're using the beta of Xcode. This is Xcode latest version, beta 3. Or actually pre-release version, so this should be Xcode 15 beta 3, and we're on the beta 3 of macOS in order to be able to play with the Vision Pro eventually, which is one of the goals that we want to do. Is we want to take the SwiftUI app and make it work on a headset and see what the heck happens. That sounds interesting. So I think we've got all of our classes now to the point where we can start building something that is a data generator, right? So let's start by just making a service here. So let's go file. We need to make a new file here. We need to call it Swift. We're going to call it data generator service. The data generator service is going to have to know about some people. So we'll call this as a class. I don't have a protocol for it just yet, and I haven't decided what we'll use for that. We do know that we're going to need some internal stuff to help us out. Gotta think about this for a second. We would want... All right, let's go with the game plan of what we're going to do before we write any code. I've told you before, I like to think about things before I write code. I don't like to write code 100 times and go back and go, oh, that's wrong. I should do it this way instead. Oh, no, that's wrong. Our data generator it's going to need a repository, right? It's going to need to know about the report repository, which we don't have yet. We only have an employee repository right now. We're going to have a report repository. It's what's going to write the records to the database that we generate, right? So we'll need a report repository. We'll need a expense type repository. We'll need a department repository because we need to get departments to find out who we're going to have be the person, the manager, that can go through and approve this. So we'll need to make sure that all that stuff matches up. So we'll need several repositories for this, and we'll have to inject those in. Our employee, let's make sure our employee is set up right? Our employee has a department that it's assigned to, and it can have multiple. We're using set there instead of array. Why did I use a set instead of an array? That's an interesting question. I don't remember what I was thinking here. Would they be able to add a department? So set, the question is, why would I use a set versus array? Well, the only reason in Swift I use a set versus array is if I want to modify it. Once you create the array, it's not mutable, right? You can't mutate it. But and there is something called mutable arrays, and those do exist. And that's mutable array is the old school way of thinking about that. If you're used to Mac OS programming, or Foundation programming, in Swift obviously we have the array and the mutable array. A set allows us to do that though in a way that is performant. It's more like a hash table. Can an employee add themselves to another department? The answer is no. Employees should not be able to add themselves to another department because the employee's department should be decided by HR. And if this was a real world app, you would never let the employee set what department they're in. So we want this to be like a real world app. So the answer is the business rules, no. HR would set what department you're in. So because of that, this shouldn't be a set at all. This should be an array. So it should just be this. And then that means this is also wrong, even though you should be able to convert between a set and an array without problems. They both inherit from the same protocol. We don't want to get into that world where we didn't have it right. So that should work. All right. I feel more comfortable with looking at the employee now that we did that, make sure it's there. So we're going to say we're eventually going to have to fix our sample data, right, of users. We'll probably have to write some kind of service that goes through and has those so that we have the departments match up with our sample data. That's the most important thing, right? Obviously, if our data doesn't match up, this ain't going to work. So the employee, when we send an employee to a department, we need to make sure that those department numbers are in there, because that's how we're going to probably dig this out of the database, is by that department number. We'll write a statement that says, hey, the employees, give me all the managers that are in department 1 or 2. For example, what that would do is that give us everybody from sales and HR, if I remember right. Those are the 2 department numbers for each one of those. And then we'd have all those managers, and the employee can select from those managers to say who's the manager that's going to improve this expense report. That's one way I've seen expense reports done, where the employee picks the manager. Another way is where there's people that are automatically assigned, like you have a assigned manager, and this is something called like a flat level management tree versus a tree level management tree. And some companies will run their departments differently, right? And so if you're a flat company hierarchy, then you probably don't have like somebody that is approving your expense report. You probably put expense report in the system, and then somebody gets assigned to it, and then they're the ones that take care of it. And there's usually multiple people that approve them, all that kind of stuff with expense reports. Once again, we got to think about all this because we're building a real world app. We're building an expense report app. We got to think about like what would be the business rules for this, because theoretically speaking, if somebody were to take this and grab this code, throw all this data in the Couchbase server and hooked it into their HR system, if all the expense codes and stuff worked, I mean, there's some reason why this can't work for them, right? Obviously, they may have their own custom business rules I haven't thought of, but the theory is that this is pretty close to a working app. So the data generator, we need all those kind of repositories, which we don't have yet. So that's what we're gonna have to start writing next is repositories for each one of these things. And we have to be able to at least get, what do we need to be able to get? We need to be able to get departments and managers. And then we need to be able, because when we're making a new expense report, we need a person to assign the expense report to, like the person making it. So that'd be like me, right? I'm logged in the system and I'll make my expense report. We need a manager to assign the expense report to. We need to know the department it's assigned to. We need to know the due date, and let's see here, the expenses on it. Because the expense report has, what am I getting money back for, right? You're asking your company for money. You said, hey, I took a cab to the airport. Give me money for that. So we need those expense types, those expense, I think in the app we call those standard expenses. Yeah, we call them standard expenses. So, and that name exists from a previous version of expense report I added, because, worked on, because, there are other types of expenses other than standard expenses, and this gets into complicated accounting rules. There's things like subscriptions, there's things like contracts expenses, there's all kinds of other types of expenses. So standard expenses simply means these are the simple things that all employees could do. And if you get into more complicated expenses, you could have an object for that, and you also could do that in an expense report. But usually those are the investment is depreciated differently, and the value to you is returned maybe possibly differently. The example I'd give you is like a subscription service. Those are written off different, and depreciation would be done differently, especially if it's like a 3-year subscription service that you bought. You'd have to depreciate that value over 3 years of the item, because that's, I mean, remember, like, say for example you buy a maybe your company is lucky enough where they allow you to buy like a monitor, right? A computer monitor. You're going to expense off that computer monitor. Well, how that normally works in the accounting world is that monitor gets depreciated over a period of time. If that monitor, if they said they're going to depreciate it over 3 years, that means in year 3, they have to have enough money set up so they can buy a new one of those, because monitors are a type of thing that basically it has to be renewed. it's going to eventually fall apart and they need to buy a new one of those. And so expense reports have to do with this. They have to do, when I told you that the expense report links to the general ledger and you have to think about all these things, these are all the things that come into play that you have to start thinking about. That's why all these codes exist and stuff. I'm not an accountant. Let me put my hands up again and remind everybody, I'm not an accountant at all, okay? I used to work for accounting firms on 2 different occasions, and one really large one and one smaller one. And one of them was one of the big 4s, EY. And so I've, throughout the years of over 10 years working for accounting firms, I've learned quite a bit about accounting. Enough to be dangerous, enough to know a lot of different things of like when you have to think about these are the things going on. That's the hardest part about mobile development, folks. You have 2 parts of mobile development. You have learning how to write mobile code, which is one part of the problem. But the other part is actually the workflow. Understanding like what does your app do and how does it do it? That's a totally different skill set, honestly. Just because you're a mobile developer doesn't mean that you're going to understand how a general ledger works or how planes fly and stuff like that. So when you're building an app, I tried to like only keep myself to learn one thing, right? I should probably know Swift already and SwiftUI so that when I'm building the app, I'm not struggling with SwiftUI. I'm only struggling with like learning this workflow of how this company does things, whatever I'm trying to build my app for. You know, learning that workflow of how that needs to work. That's a learning process going to have to happen. If you're learning too many things at once, then that leads usually to frustration, and you're going to get burnt out. That's usually what happens. So. Let's see here. So I think, let's see here. It is, actually I've only got 15 minutes before the stream's supposed to end. What can we do in 15 minutes real quick here? Well, the app works. We haven't broke the app at all. Yes, we did. We just broke the app. Well, crud, how did I break the app? Let's fix the app. Because I make it as a set here. I was making it as a set so I could do this trick here. So I could just load all of them here. That's going to be PO'd because... Yeah... I can't insert I can't insert departments. Poop. That's the reason why I had it as a set. I think we're gonna have to do some data transformation. I think we want to make this a set still. And let's see here. Let's revert this. Wait, did I make any other changes in the... I made a bunch of other changes in here. I can't revert this that easily. Yeah, I would be set. Equals... Wait. Is that the right syntax? Nope. That should be... Alright, let's revert. Xcodes doesn't have history. It's not let me revert that. What did I have before? It should be a set of departments. But I remember that this is not the right syntax for it. That's a C# syntax I'm writing right now. I still write a lot of C#. Well, I don't as much as I used to. I wish I did, but C# is a great language. No, it should not be that. It should just be department. It's because the department's not hashable. If it's in a set, it would have to know the key and the value. That's what's going on, isn't it? Because then I think I grabbed the departments from a... Well, I need to definitely make it a collection. Let me just check fork real quick here. Fork is a Git client, folks. If you haven't used it yet, it's pretty great, and it allows you to kind of go through and see what's going on here. So if I look at, that was which file that I'm currently it's complaining about. Employee profile view. I don't think I've changed that. I think I can revert the changes. And then I think I'm going to have to go through and make department hashable to fix that. Let's see here. Where is employee profile view here? What did we change? Yeah. See, take a look. This is the original code. Equals set department. Oh, it's just set department with no department name in the brackets. What other change did I make? Oh, I changed the fields. Well, poop. All right. Well, we can't lose this change, so we're just gonna do this. See this one line? We're gonna cheat. We're gonna see what we changed, and we're gonna change it back. That should fix departments. No, this is a different problem, though. Because department... Wait. An employee has only a single department. Yeah, because it's an array. Oh. There should be a converter that converts this a set to an array. What's SR? I can't remember the syntax for this, so I'm thinking. I keep thinking of toArray from C#, but that's not right. What is the Swift syntax for converting a set to an array? Ask our ChatGPT overloads. Yep. Huh. You just wrap it in an array and it makes a new constructor and then unboxes it. Okay, well, shit. Pardon my French. That was terrible. Don't curse on stream. Sometimes the simplest solution to the problem is to just basically make a simple solution. So this is different though. If let departments equals employee department, so we're getting departments out from an employee, but this will be an array. So then we'd have to convert this to a set. Let's try building again. That's going to bug me, the fact that the error warning comes up about the user not being used, but it actually is. So what do we got going on here? Oh, I got a breakpoint in. Let's delete the breakpoint. Why did I have a breakpoint in there? Let's continue that. So we have a new database. And let's see here. Let's try Bob Smith and developer. We'll set a picture to one of the built stocking ones. Click save. It worked. Bob is saving. Let's make sure that the departments are getting selected. Hey, the departments are still being selected, right? So that means all that stuff I just did with arrays worked. I just swapped it over, use a constructor call, and magic sauce, it fixed itself. We'll just make sure that that's happening, though. Let's select ones that are way far apart from each other, like admin and information technology. Let's do that real quick and save and make sure that that happens. If I go back to Bob and look at them, it should be admin and information technology. There it is. All right, folks, we did it. I was able to go through and get that working. That fixes it all up. So what did we do today? Well, it seems like not much, but we set ourselves up for the future. We created ourselves a sample database. We got ourselves all the data models in that we need to build a data generator. We started thinking about our data generator, and what we come up to is that we're going to need some repositories outside of the employee repository. We're going to have to start building repositories to get things. So we also could cheat and look at the Android one, right? I've already written this for Android a little bit, but I think there's things I want to improve in the Android one. So I'm not 100% guaranteed that if I looked at the Android one, I'd be 100% with what I wrote there. Like I said, I already know that I made some concessions about how I did it because it was the team that wanted the app written wanted a certain set of things. And so I think the first thing it does is make a report, and then it has to make the expense items. But first it has to go through and get things like a random manager and stuff. So, and I think the manager's list random is a helper function that I wrote that's an extension off the manager. Yeah. So it looks like there's a list, and I have an extension method on that that does that. So I don't want to do this in the report repository. That's crazy. We'll do it as a service instead, because the report repository job should only be handling reports. It shouldn't know anything about all this other crap. It has to know about expenses and managers, and it's doing all kinds of things it shouldn't know how to do. It's going to make this really hard to test. And that's also something we need to do on the next stream, is probably get we should probably write some tests and make sure that we don't break things moving forward, because this app is getting pretty big. We've got quite a few classes in here now. In Struts, we have it to the point where a change could I could change something like I did with departments today, completely break everything, and that's bad. All right. Well, I think I've made some decisions what we're going to work on next. I think what we're going to work on next is getting some repositories done, but I also think we're going to do some writing some tests. We'll write are we going to write a unit test or integration test or functional test? Well, I think we'll do functional tests guaranteed. I like functional tests, but they're super expensive, and they're only great if the UI doesn't change. If the UI changes, it's bad. Bad news bears. I think we'll do functional tests, and I think we're going to do some integration tests. I don't know if I'm going to do regular unit tests in this app. They're usually, like testing classes, the values, if I do an integration test, I've got the test class as part of the integration test usually. So I'm going to make the argument that I'm not really sure my time spent on writing just regular class tests is going to work, or it's going to be valuable to my time. I think instead we could write integration tests against all the repositories. We write integration tests against the database manager, and we write integration tests to our services, and that should be enough to validate they're working. And those are going to be the primary meat. If those break, the classes underneath them, if the classes were to break, they would break the integration service, or the integration tests. All right, yep, I have a game plan. All right, folks. Well, it's 4 o'clock here, and that's usually when I get offline for stream. However, check my schedule. I will be streaming tonight again. This is usually the European schedule for the people that are in Asia and Europe. I usually try to do something for them in the evenings. Most people don't watch streams when they're working, so I try to do an afternoon stream for them. And I'd split my stream off into an evening stream for the people in the U.S., especially in the West Coast, that can catch my evening stream. So I'll be streaming again. Be a little bit later on tonight. What is my stream schedule? I don't remember. Let me go look up my calendar and see what my stream schedule is. So I can just let you know. I will be back online at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that's 8 p.m. in the East Coast. And of course, if that's 8 p.m., that's, let's see, that'd be what, 4? And, well, it's 9 for me, so it'd be 6 on Pacific. Wait, that looks like it's... Is that Kelvin? What is this icon, Matt? I've never seen that icon before. That looks like Kelvin. I'm not sure who... I don't think that's Matt. I've seen you before, Matt. That does not look like you, that icon. Ah, it is. Okay. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I'm freaking out here. There's an icon that I don't understand why. But okay, cool. Well, folks, it's been bang, bada, boom. I get it now. Cool, folks. I want to thank you again for following along the stream today. I know that we didn't do a lot of SwiftUI today. We kind of reviewed what we did in SwiftUI in the previous stream, and then we modified some code. We got some stuff built up so that we could build a data generator. Our goal is to get to the point where we can generate data so we can start writing the expense reports list. We want to be able to list out expense reports. And if we have a data generator that generates the data for us, then we don't have to worry about making the form for building expense reports. We can just use our sample data. This is going to help us with all the different problems we're going to have with the UI. We're going to have things like, how do we draw currency? How do we guarantee dates look nice? All those kind of things we're going to have to deal with in SwiftUI. And we're going to want to make that list so that it's cards. And we want to make it so it's super fast to scroll. So stick around. That's what we're going to work on in the future streams coming up. Once we get the reports done, then we'll work on getting the editor for those, and then we'll work on adding expenses to your report. And we'll probably use the camera so you can scan in a receipt. That's going to be a lot of fun. So there's a bunch of things coming up in the next couple of weeks that we're going to do with this expense report. We'll have tons of things with images. Obviously, we just started with user profiles, but we want to use the camera, take expense report images. We're going to have the ability to scan in QR codes possibly. We'll take a look at that, see if there's a use case for that or not. Either way, we want to have a bunch of fun with this. The app probably should take us a couple more weeks to build, and we'll probably have something that's ready to say that we could probably send it out and get some comments on it. And then we'll probably move on to Flutter next. We're going to build the same app in Flutter after this. And then we're going to build the same app, and we're going to build it in .NET. And I'm kind of mixed on this. I'll probably do a poll on the internet again on this. I think I'm going to do something unique that I haven't done before with that .NET app. I think I'm going to write it in 2 different languages at the same time. You're probably going to say, how's that possible? Well, it is absolutely possible. I can write the models and all the data access layer stuff. I can write all that in a shared library that I can share between a Maui application and an Avalonian application. And I think I want to do that because Avalonian is the version of Flutter for .NET. It's I could write in VB. I don't know if VB will 100% compile Maui, but I actually wrote way too much VB.NET that I should ever admit to on the internet. I told you I worked at an accounting firm, and their HR system was written in VB4, I think. They had a training module that I had to rewrite from VB4 into .NET, and they handed me the source code on paper. I said, do you have the source code? They said, yes. And I was like, sweet. I started this company. I'm okay, well, they got the source code. This is like 2006. So I was figuring they got it in source safe. They have it in source control, like source safe, or maybe CVS, so like that. They handed me a big red binder, and all the source code was printed out, and they put it on my desk. They go, here's the source code. And I open up, I'm like, okay, do you have this in electronic format? They're like, it's right there. I'm like, what? They're like, we can scan it in for you to PDFs if you like. I'm like, ooh, that's not what I said when I meant electronic. Ooh, yeah. And so, yeah, that whole system, I had to convert that whole thing into a modern version of .NET. And it was WinForms, C#. And I think I ended up doing it... I think I did it all in C#. I think when I worked at the hospital I worked at, we wrote the evaluation system in VB.NET. I'm trying to think like what system I did in VB.NET versus C#. I think that was one of them that we just kept in VB because it wasn't worth the conversion time. And I mean, VB is just wordy. It's not a bad language per se. It's just wordy. I get annoyed by some of the things that it has in it. There's things that it's taken out of C#, like public properties came from VB. That's really cool. It's bag option that it has, the view bag. That kind of is an ASP.NET now, and the what is the other thing? The with statement. The with statement kind of is a modern C# now. And honestly, I don't think we'd have as cool as options in C# without VB.NET, because some of the things that they stole and put into C# from VB.NET or VB were pretty great. Like I said, public properties is now pretty much a standard thing in just about every language I know of. Just about every language I know has some kind of property option without having to do get and setters outside of Java. And even modern Java has that with a framework that you can add in. So VB gets a bad rap. Although if you ask me if you're going to pay me to write it, would I ever write it? I don't know. It's really wordy. It's really, really wordy. I don't know if I like writing VB all that much. But either way, Python developers probably like VB. Matt, I think if you're a Python developer, you looked at VB, you'd be like, oh, this feels like at home. It's the same kind of chaos, I would say. No semicolons, tabs, snake case. Python developers, get rid of snake case. All right, I'm not going to rant anymore. My wife's going to be mad if I don't get off the computer. I have to go and take care of the garden before and cook supper before I can come back and stream again. So I'm going to get off here, folks. I want to thank you again for all your free time. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to go through and try to get this data generator working and maybe even write some SwiftUI code. So it does not have significant white space. You're right on that. But I'll see you all guys tonight. I'm looking to see if there's anybody I can raid. Give me 2 seconds here. We'll see if there's a raid. Is there somebody else streaming tonight I can raid to? I don't see any of my friends. Anybody in chat want to throw out somebody that's streaming they want me to raid real quick? I don't see... App Builder's not on... None of the normal crew is on. Bunch of video game stuff out there, but I don't see any developers online that are currently coding. Let me go to technology. Let's see if there's anybody doing SwiftUI. So we do have the Beast in the Middle East. I don't know if that's in English, though. That is not in English, I don't think. So there's only 2 people doing SwiftUI, me and another person, and that person does not have, it's not in English. So I'm just going to end the stream then, folks.